everyone, my name is Tamara Aulia Fahira. Now I will give you presentation about language and the brain. First, I will give you explanation about the human brain itself. The human brain composed of 10 billion nerve cells or neurons. The highest level of the brain is the cerebral cortex, found only in the mammals, and human has the greatest proportion of cortex. Language representation and processing resides in the cortex. The brain is composed of cerebral hemispheres. Right hemisphere supervises left side of body and the left hemisphere supervises right side of body. The right hemisphere does better in pattern matching text, recognizing faces, and spatial orientation, and left hemisphere is superior for language, rhythmic perception, temporal order judgments, and mathematical thinking skills. Now I will explain about localization or lateralization. Localization itself is different human cognitive abilities and behaviors are localized in specific parts of the brain, and lateralization is any cognitive function that is localized primarily in one side of the brain. In almost all right-handed individuals and most left-handed individuals, language is left-handed lateralized. Lateralization. In the past, some cases of severe epilepsy were treated by cutting the corpus callosum, severing the connection between the two hemispheres. Now, aphasia. Aphasias provide evidence for localization of language. Aphasia is any language disorder due to brain damage caused by disease of trauma. Many aphasics are selectively language impaired, and aphasics do not registerally have cognitive or intellectual impairments. The first aphasia is Broca's aphasia. Paul Broca, in French, in 1864 found that damage to the front part of the left hemisphere resulted in loss of speech. Broca's area is in the left hemisphere where the frontal, parietal, and temporal lobes meet. Effects of Broca's aphasia is intelligence not necessarily affected, understanding not necessarily affected, audition severely impaired, trouble with function words, example articles, prepositions, pronouns, trouble with inflection morphology, difficulties forming grammatical sentences, and difficulties understanding complex sentences, example passive. The second aphasia is Wernicke's aphasia. Karl Wernicke in German in 1874 found that Wernicke's aphasia is fluent speech, good intonation, lexical errors, nonsense words, word salad, and comprehension impaired. Wernicke's aphasia area is in the parietal temporal region in the left hemisphere. Example of Wernicke's aphasia is this conversation between a doctor and a patient. A doctor said, "How do you feel?" And a patient said, "I felt worse because I can no longer keep in mind from the mind of the minds, keep me from mind and up to the ear, we can be to find among ourselves." Broca's and Wernicke's area is Broca's area controls is syntax and Wernicke's area controls is semantics. In fact, although we have an idea of where the general language areas of the brain are, there are individual differences in the exact locations. Now I will talk about hemispherectomy. Hemispherectomy is removing one hemisphere of the brain. In adult hemispherectomy patients lost most but not all of their linguistic competence, lost the ability to speak and process complex synthetic patterns, retain some language comprehension ability. If right cerebral hemisphere removed, difficulty in understanding jokes and metaphors, cannot use loudness and intonation as cues to whether a speaker is angry, excited, or merely joking. So the right hemisphere also has a role in normal language use. To some extent, the brain may reassign functions to different areas of the brain. This is due to the plasticity of the brain. Left hemisphere is predisposed to learn language. During language development, the right hemisphere can take over many language functions if necessary. Child hemispherectomy patients are able to acquire a linguistic system, albeit delayed. In adults, the right hemisphere cannot take over linguistic functions anymore. Plasticity of the brain decreases with age. Children with SLI, or specific language impairment, have difficulties in acquiring language but do not have brain lesions responsible for language difficulties and have no other cognitive deficits. Evidence from aphasia, SLI, and the asymmetry of abilities in language savants strongly supports the view that language faculty is autonomous, genetically determined, and consists of multiple brain modules. Okay, that's all from me. Good afternoon. See you.